All right, so are you ready to dive deep with me today?
Always. What are we diving into?
We're going to tackle this question of what is the hardest coffee to make?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I know you're probably thinking, isn't it just beans and hot water?
Right. Like, how hard can it be?
Exactly, but trust me, it's way more nuanced than that.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and today we're basing our deep dive on an article from Coffee at Corner.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that site.
Yeah, it's like a coffee lover's paradise. And so this is perfect for anyone who's even a little bit curious about coffee.
For sure, whether you're like a casual coffee drinker or like you consider yourself a bit of a coffee nerd.
Yeah, exactly. So get ready for some serious aha moments.
Love it.
Okay, so one thing that kind of blew my mind in this article is it says that sometimes the hardest coffee to make isn't about technique,
Really?
it's about the ingredients.
That's interesting.
Right. So they bring up this example of commercial coffee roasting. So there's giant machines that are roasting beans for all the cafes and shops.
Oh, yeah.
They're saying that that actually makes something like espresso surprisingly hard to get, right?
Wow, really? I would think a giant machine would make things easier,
Right.
not harder.
Me too. But it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, break it down for me.
So when you're roasting on that scale, even the tiniest little variations in temperature or time can throw off the entire batch.
Right, like they have to be so precise.
Exactly. And espresso is super sensitive to those changes.
Because it's so concentrated.
Yeah. And that creme,
Right, all those little things.
it all has to be perfect. So it's kind of like baking, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like a simple cake at home is one thing, but imagine trying to bake thousands of perfect cakes in a factory.
Right, the margin for error is just so tiny.
Exactly.
It's all about consistency on that scale.
Yeah, so they're aiming for a perfect cup every single time.
Which with espresso is really hard.
Right. So ingredients play a huge role, but let's get into the actual brewing methods.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
The article lists a few contenders for the hardest title, and the first one is almost too much to bear.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
The French press.
Oh, no.
I know. I feel personally betrayed by this.
I know it seems so simple,
Right.
but they're saying it's one of the trickiest?
Yes. To master.
Huh.
So why is that?
Well, I think it's because the French press seems so simple that people kind of overlook the nuances.
Right. You think you can just throw some coffee in there and add some hot water.
Right, exactly. But remember how we were talking about consistency with roasting?
Yeah.
The French press is like the opposite of that.
Right. There's no steady drip of water.
Yeah, it's all manual. You're controlling everything.
Right. So your grind size has to be perfect.
Yes, the water temperature matters.
Okay.
And get this, even the mug you use can impact the flavor.
Hold up the mug. I thought any old cup would do.
Yeah, a lot of people think that, but it really does make a difference.
So what's the science behind that?
Well, it all comes down to extraction, right?
Yeah.
That process of pulling the flavor compounds from the coffee grounds into your cup.
Uh-huh.
So with the French press, the coffee keeps steeping even after you plunge.
Oh, that's right.
So the mug's material, its shape, even its size, all affect how the coffee cools and how the aromas develop.
Wow. I did not realize how many variables there were.
Right. So it's deceptively difficult.
No wonder my French press coffee is sometimes amazing and sometimes,
Not so much.
let's just say I need a second cup.
Exactly. But that's part of the challenge and the fun of it.
Yeah. Okay, so French press checked. What's next in our quest for the most challenging brew?
Okay, let's move on to another method that's all about precision and control, the AeroPress.
Oh, yes. The AeroPress.
This one's fun.
It uses air pressure to brew.
Right, exactly. It's like a little science experiment in your kitchen.
I love that.
But that also makes it really variable.
So you have to be precise with everything.
Yes, your grind size, how long you steep, the force you use when plunging, it's all about balance.
Oh, wow. So for our listener who loves to tinker and experiment,
This is for them.
the AeroPress sounds like their coffee soulmate.
Absolutely. But it is a steep learning curve.
Okay, so we've tackled two manual methods that demand a lot of control.
The French press and the AeroPress.
But let's switch gears and explore something totally different.
Okay, Emmy.
The article mentions Turkish coffee,
Oh, yeah.
which sounds like it's in a league of its own.
It really is.
So what makes Turkish coffee so unique?
So Turkish coffee, it's not just a brewing method.
Okay.
It's like a whole cultural experience.
Interesting.
It's steeped in tradition, and it's popular across the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and parts of Africa.
Wow.
And each region has its own, unique spin on it.
That's cool. So what makes it so special?
Well, it's traditionally brewed in a special pot called a seve.
A seve.
Yeah. And they use incredibly finely ground coffee.
Like Powdered sugar fine.
even finer.
Oh.
And the brewing process is also really unique. They bring the coffee to a boil multiple times in the sesve, and it creates this like thick, strong brew with a layer of foam on top.
So this isn't your like grab and go morning
Well,
coffee.
it's a ritual.
Right.
It's about slowing down, savoring the process, and appreciating the history and the culture behind each sip.
I love that. So if you're looking for like a coffee experience that goes beyond just a caffeine jolt.
Turkish coffee is worth trying.
Awesome. Okay, so we've covered French press, AeroPress, Turkish coffee
All pretty challenging.
in their own ways. But
Yeah.
now let's talk about something that might seem deceptively easy. The trusty old drip machine.
Ah, the classic.
But even the article acknowledges that making great drip coffee isn't as straightforward as it seems.
Yeah, it's not just pushing a button.
Right. So why is that?
You'd be surprised how many people think drip machine equals effortless coffee.
Totally.
But just like with any brewing method, the details matter.
Okay, so even with a machine doing most of the work, you still have to pay attention to certain things.
Exactly. So one of the biggest things people overlook is water quality.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Using filtered water can make a huge difference. But a lot of people just use whatever's coming out of the tap.
Right. And then there's the grinder.
Ah, yes, the eternal debate.
Burr grinder versus blade grinder.
Exactly. A burr grinder gives you a much more consistent grind, which is crucial for even extraction.
Uh-huh.
And a balanced flavor blade grinders tend to chop the beans unevenly, which leads to inconsistencies.
Right. And then don't forget about the settings on your drip machine.
Yes. So many people just ignore those.
Like the brew strength or the water temperature.
Yeah, those can make a world of difference.
So even with something as seemingly simple as a drip machine, there's like a surprising amount of nuance and control.
Absolutely. It's not just set it and forget it if you want truly good coffee.
Okay, so that brings us to what the article considers the ultimate challenge in coffee making.
Dun, dun, dun.
Roasting your own beans.
That's the big one.
Yeah, and this is where things get really interesting, and we'll delve into it in part 2 of our deep dive.
I can't wait.
Me too. Stay tuned, because we're going to unlock the mysteries of home roasting.
And uncover what makes it the ultimate coffee challenge.
It's going to be epic.
I'm so ready. Welcome back, coffee explorers.
I'm so ready to roast some beans.
All right, so are you ready to step into the world of home roasting?
Yes. I'm ready to unlock those secrets and uncover why it's considered the ultimate coffee challenge.
It's a journey.
I've always been so intimidated by it,
I know it can seem daunting.
but I'm feeling that adventurous spark.
That's the spirit. Home roasting is all about experimentation.
Okay, so where does this journey even begin?
Well, before you even fire up a roaster, you need to think about what kind of coffee you're going for.
So what kind of flavors am I looking for?
Exactly. Do you want those bright, fruity notes of a Ethiopian bean?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you're dreaming of a rich, chocolatey brew from Guatemala.
Ooh.
There are so many choices.
It's like being a kid in a candy store, but for coffee lovers.
It really is. And each origin brings its own unique flavors.
Okay, so let's say I've chosen my origin. What's next?
Finding a good supplier.
A supplier.
Yeah, someone who sources high-quality, ethically produced beans.
Okay, so where do I find these suppliers?
There are a bunch of online retailers and even some local roasters who specialize in green coffee beans.
Green coffee beans.
Yeah, those are the unroasted beans just waiting to be transformed.
Okay, cool. So I've got my bag of green beans. Now what?
Time for the main event, the roasting itself.
The article made it sound kind of scary.
It can be intimidating, but it's also really rewarding.
Okay, so what kind of equipment do I need?
You have a few options depending on your budget and how serious you are about it.
Okay.
There are dedicated home roasting machines that give you a lot of control over the temperature and time.
Those sound fancy.
They are, but you can also go the DIY route.
Oh, really? Like how?
You can roast beans in a modified popcorn popper,
What?
or even a cast iron skillet.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, a popcorn popper. That's amazing.
Right, it makes it a lot more approachable.
So what's the actual roasting process like?
It's a delicate dance between heat and time.
Okay.
You're carefully heating those beans, listening for those little cracks they make.
Cracks.
Yeah, the beans crack as they release moisture and oils.
Oh, wow.
And you're watching as they transform from green to all those beautiful shades of brown.
So you have to listen and watch carefully.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It takes practice to recognize those cues and know when your beans are perfectly roasted.
So it's not just about following a recipe.
No, it's about developing an understanding of the beans themselves
Interesting.
and how they respond to heat It's almost like an art form.
I love that there are so many variables.
Right. The type of bean, the roasting time, the
So
temperature.
even slight adjustments can change the flavor.
Absolutely. That's why home roasting is so rewarding.
You can create a cup that's totally unique to you.
Exactly. You have complete control.
I can see why the article called it the ultimate challenge.
It's knowledge, skill, and intuition all combined.
But is it worth all the effort?
If you're truly passionate about coffee and want to control every step of the process, then absolutely.
Okay, you've convinced me.
Awesome.
Home roasting is officially on my coffee bucket list.
I love it.
But before we move on, can we rewind for a second and talk about extraction?
Sure.
You mentioned it with the French press, but it seems like a fundamental concept.
You're right. Extraction is at the heart of coffee brewing, no matter what method you use.
So can you remind me what it is again?
It's the process of pulling those delicious flavor compounds from the coffee grounds into your cup.
Right, those compounds that give coffee all its character. So it's
Yeah.
like a dance between water and coffee grounds.
I like that analogy.
So what's the goal of extraction?
To find that sweet spot,
Sweet spot.
that perfect balance between under extraction and over extraction.
Okay, so if you under extract, what
Okay.
happens?
You end up with a weak sour cup.
Not good.
And if you over extract,
Yeah.
you get hit with bitterness and astringency.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the goal is to find that balance.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do we find that sweet spot?
Grind size is a huge factor.
Right, we talked about that with the burr grinder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A coarser grind means slower extraction, and a finer grind speeds things up.
Okay, what else?
Water temperature is crucial. Too hot, and you risk over extracting.
Okay.
Too cold, and you won't get enough flavor.
And then there's brewing time.
Right. The longer the water is in contact with the grounds, the higher the extraction.
Wow, it's like a science experiment.
It really is. There are so many variables at play.
That's what makes it so fun, right?
Exactly. Once you understand the basics, you can start experimenting.
And fine-tuning to create your perfect cup.
Precisely.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening.
I'm glad.
I'm seeing coffee in a whole new light.
That's what we like to hear.
But we're not done yet.
There's one more challenge to conquer.
Oh, really?
The artistry of latte art.
Yes. I'm so fascinated by those baristas who can create those amazing designs.
It's pretty incredible.
I can't wait to learn more about it.
Get ready to unravel the secrets of latte art in part 3 of our deep dive.
It's going to be epic. All right, so we're back for the final part of our coffee deep dive.
And we've saved the best for last.
I know, I'm excited we've explored like all these nuances of brewing.
From the French press to home roasting,
Even dove into like the science of extraction.
it's been quite a journey.
It has, but there's one final challenge we need to conquer.
The artistry of latte art.
Yes. I'm honestly like completely mesmerized by those baristas who can just effortlessly swirl steamed milk into those amazing rosettas and tulips.
It's pretty magical, isn't it?
It seems like magic to me.
It might seem like magic, but it's really just a combination of like precise technique,
Okay.
an understanding of milk chemistry,
Oh, wow.
and a whole lot of practice.
So where do we even begin?
Well, it all starts with the foundation steaming the milk.
Right, we talked about grind size and water temperature for brewing, but for latte art, it's all about the milk.
Exactly. The texture of the milk is everything.
So what's the ideal milk texture for creating those designs?
We're looking for something called microfoam.
Microfoam.
Yeah, it's a smooth, velvety texture that's created by introducing tiny air bubbles into the milk as you steam it.
Okay, so too much air is bad.
Yeah, too much air, and you get big bubbly foam that's really hard to work with.
And too little.
Then you won't be able to make those distinct designs.
So microfoam got it.
It's all about finding that balance.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So once we've mastered the microfoam, what then?
Well, then the real fun begins.
Do we just start pouring?
Not quite. There are specific pouring techniques for different designs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to control the flow of the milk from the pitcher
Okay.
and use these little wrist movements to guide those swirls and shapes.
Wow, it sounds complicated.
It is. It takes practice, but like any skill, you can learn it.
Yeah. With patience and dedication.
Oh, exactly. There are tons of online tutorials and resources.
Cool. So you could actually like learn to do this at home.
Absolutely. Why not?
Huh. Maybe one day I'll be hosting my own latte art throwdown.
I would love to see that.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, all these different challenges of coffee making.
It's a lot of fun.
It has, and it makes me realize that the idea of like the hardest coffee to make is kind of subjective.
I agree. It depends on what you find challenging.
Exactly. Like maybe for someone just starting out, the French press is their Everest.
Right.
But for someone else, it might be home roasting or latte art.
And there's another layer to this whole idea of hardest.
Oh, really? What's that?
Have you ever heard of those, like, super rare and exclusive coffees?
Oh, yeah, like those unicorn coffees that cost a fortune.
Exactly, those beans that are grown in remote regions or processed using these, like, unique methods.
Yeah, they're almost mythical.
They are, and imagine if you finally got your hands on some of those beans,
Oh, the pressure would be immense.
you'd want to brew them perfectly.
You'd probably need like a whole lab setup.
Yeah, and years of experience.
So maybe the hardest coffee isn't about mastering a technique or having the fanciest equipment.
Maybe it's about acknowledging that there's this whole world of coffee experiences out there.
Some more accessible than others.
Exactly.
It's about embracing the journey.
Wherever you are on your coffee path.
So whether you're a casual sipper or a seasoned barista, there's always something new to learn.
So we challenge you.
Something to spark that coffee passion.
I think that's a great way to end this deep dive.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
So as we wrap up our exploration of challenging coffees,
We hope you've enjoyed the journey.
and maybe even redefine what hard means to you in your own coffee adventures.
So until next time, happy brewing.
Cheers to that.